dunk it. Nice.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the One Trick Hero podcast. It is me, your host, Paxfos, and with me today, as always, is Voxia.
Yep.
And Fish Whisperer.
Yup.
All right, so we have quite the things to talk about today. One of the first things I wanted to hit on right off the bat was New York Excelsior losing to Boston Uprising. It was a phenomenal game. If you have the chance to watch it, if you had the chance to watch it, I mean, you were in for a treat. But if you didn't, I would definitely suggest looking at the VOD because
Which game was phenomenal?
The New York versus Boston.
You mean the match?
Well, yeah.
I'm sorry. People call it. I hate when people, even the cast, call it a game because it's like 4 games. It's 4 maps. No, that's 4 different games. It's a match.
4 games, 4 matches.
You call like a basketball or a football game a game because it's one matchup.
Right.
That in that sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It's like the Dust does it shit. I'm just like, come on.
Yeah, my bad.
Fucking.
Yep.
No, you're good.
No, my bad. Okay,
no,
but anyways.
Go. No, please go. Just off yourself. You fucked up too hard this time.
Vox is a noted NYXL fan, so he wasn't obviously too pleased. Notable NYXL fan. But no, it was a good game, even if regardless of who you're a fan of. It was an excellent game. I would definitely suggest watching the VOD.
I mean, NYXL seemed a bit off, but I don't mean that in a way to discredit Boston. No, they really did. Like, Sabiobi was really inconsistent.
Well, you could say the same thing.
He had a few really good times where he popped off, but for the most part, he was... I don't know. He was kind of asleep for a lot of the matchups. But I'm not trying to say that Boston only won because New York didn't play. I'm just saying that, like, they didn't play up to their normal level, whereas Boston played above their normal level. Like, they really showed this week that they're, like, even stronger despite the fact that, they lost Dream Casper. I'm saying Boston played phenomenal, right? Like, they had a really outstanding performance. So I'm not taking anything away from Boston's victory. It's just I will say, like, I'm a fan. I'm biased, but objectively, I think NYXL was a bit off too because they just didn't. They were doing things that they don't normally do. Sabiobi wasn't popping off as much. They weren't adjusting and defending their backline, and Boston just kept abusing that, and they couldn't get it together, like, to make it matter. But it was still a good series.
Well, I don't know. The only reason why I think this might be just other teams kind of getting better kind of thing is the New York versus Houston game later on in the week was equally as nail-biting.
To be fair, Houston is the best team in the whole league, though. So there's that.
I think NYXL's just having an off week.
I don't know. Possibly. It just seems like we're seeing better play across the board. Now, I do agree with you on Sabiobi, though. Sabiobi was off to a slow start on both the Boston games, Boston games and the Houston games. He was definitely... it took him versus Houston. It took him, I don't know, like the first 2 matches. It kind of seemed like he was kind of
even
trudging along, or first 2 games rather.
Libero didn't seem as consistent as he has been lately. Pine, strangely enough, Pine seemed the most consistent player between the two.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
On the 2 series, and he's been the most inconsistent player on NYXL. So I just think I'm not saying like I just think I don't know. I think they just weren't like. They were only at like 95% or something of their 100% this week for some reason. I could be wrong, but that's just what I feel.
Right.
Because it wasn't as like the series were still good, but they weren't quite as back and forth on the level that it was back when they first played London in like the last day of stage 1.
Right.
It was like there was just some weird off things about them, but the other teams were just playing so well too.
I don't know.
Anyway.
I'm thinking, the other thing, too, that I enjoyed about, I was going to touch on the Boston one, but also on the Houston one was actually the Linkser versus Pine Widow battles. That was incredibly entertaining, and I think that's one of the reasons. And it's weird because the casters during the actual, right after after New York won, they were saying that Pine counter-sniping Linkser was the reason why they won. And I was like, I don't know what you were watching, but Linkser, for the most part, had the upper hand in the counter snipes. I think the reason why they won was because Linkser was so focused on this counter battle. Like, Linkser may have won, but it was still time taken away, and then the rest of the team just outperformed on NYXL's side. That's what it seemed like to me anyways when I was watching it. It didn't really seem like just straight like outperformance.
I think
of
the
Whittle.
casters, what were going off on it was it looked like Linkser had the upper hand on him on the majority of the time. However, Pine won the ones that mattered when it came down to whether or not it was going to be the match getting won. Because Pine would Linkser kind of had the upper hand on him for a little bit, while like on Junkertown he had the upper hand on him for a little bit, and then all of a sudden Pine popped off like 3 team fights in a row, and it kept him from being able to take up the point that they were trying to take.
So Linkser had more kills, but Pine had more
he
high
was
impact kills.
Yeah, he was kind of taking over for most of it. However, Pine pretty much would started winning the team fights right when it came down to when it mattered whether or not the match was going to get won.
Yeah.
That's what it seemed like to me. But
yeah, Pine was kind of, it looked like he didn't have it all there, and then all of a sudden he got everything collected when he absolutely had to, which was really good play on his part.
Yep.
Yeah, because he's been. And not that he's been a terrible choker, but it's just not consistently been able to hit the shots when they really matter in the past. He's kind of fumbled a bit here and there.
On top of this, this week being high impact for New York, well, for everybody, well. Okay, what I was going to transition into is the league standings. They've kind of flopped a little bit since the last stage. We now have, obviously, still New York in the top. The top 3 are still the top 3, New York, London, and Seoul. But Seoul and London are not top 3 by a large margin. Actually, right beneath them, really close, is Boston with 4th.
Yeah.
They're climbing ranks, and it's interesting. I don't know really what happened, but Boston and Houston flipped. Boston was 7th, Houston was 4th or 3rd, I believe, last time. But we're starting to see Boston climb up. I don't think it's so much of a fact of Houston going down. I think Philly's just had some good matchups, and the Valiant, I don't know what's going on with the Valiant. They're winning, then they're losing. I don't know. And over the course of the entirety of this regular season, the same top 7 have been vying for the top, pieces. It's always been really Houston, LA, Philly, and Boston kind of clamoring to get into that top 6. They're all kind of battling between each other to get out of 7th. Mm-hmm. And then, Seoul, London, and New York. Seoul's had a few moments where they looked pretty weak, and it's well, I'm not really sure. And then London also, really the only super dominant performer across the board has been New York.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, Boston.
They're really the only ones that have been winning with any kind of consistency.
High consistency. I mean, Boston was their 3rd loss, a period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Pretty crazy.
The next lowest is 8 with London and Seoul and Boston and Philly, actually. So. Yeah,
but I mean, could see those numbers changing. London is, it's not like Philly isn't really good, but London still looked not as strong against teams that traditionally you would think going into it that they wouldn't have that much issue.
Yeah, I kind of thought that London hasn't looked as strong this stage as what they were the last couple ones.
No,
they're not looking bad. I just, you know what I mean, though.
But I think it is the other teams, at least the other ones that are in contention for the top of the board teams, top half. They are starting to get better and match up there. It's just not to NYXL because it's like Wizard Young said. There's no difference between Western and Korean teams. There's just Excelsior team and non-Excelsior teams.
Yeah. Well, another thing I've noticed is that the teams have seemingly, just going off of their map wins and loss ratios, and just kind of how the stats have been playing out for the wins and whatnot for the team. A lot of the teams have been getting progressively better, and it's evening out. But a lot of the numbers that are inflating for those teams are being dragged from the likes of Dallas Fuel, Florida, Shanghai, and San Francisco. Those are the 4 teams that have been really on a negative downtrend, and even when they get some forward progression, it just doesn't get any headway. Gladiators was literally in the middle of the pack. I mean, as of right now, they are the middle of the pack team. They get about even win to loss.
But you can still see. The thing that I like from them is that they've had kind of like a trend where sometimes they've taken a step forward and then 2 steps back, but it's not the same way that like the other teams you're mentioning have. Like San Francisco or Florida. Like they're not they are improving. Like I mean they improved a huge shit ton like when Fissure joined, of course.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of plateaued a little bit, but then the other pieces are starting to fill in a little bit better more too. So it's kind of slower than some of the other teams, but I think they're still improving even when they're losing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Fissure was I think a big swinging point for them, getting a solid tank.
I mean, come on, who's better than Fissure? Nobody.
For main tank?
You don't know the meme?
Wait, no. Is there a meme about this? Hold on, put it in Discord. Put it in Discord. I want to see it.
Well, I have to go to. I can't find it off the top of my head, but basically, if you go to Fissure's stream, there's like a command that's like !Fissure or something like that, and he's like, Fissure is the most handsome, most strongest, best man tank in the world. Who's better than Fissure? Nobody. And so people who know that spam it in the chat every time Gladiators are playing. And there was even a sign over this weekend that was like, who's better than Fissure? Nobody. But even Puckett said it. I think Puckett and Reinforce or whatever, they were talking about it. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
Interesting.
Especially because his arms are like not as wide as his water bottle, even pretty much. But he's still the strongest. Nobody. Who's better than Fissure? Nobody. I do think he's top 4 though, in my opinion.
Yeah, he's really good.
Oh yeah.
I think
the fact that him going to the Gladiators took them out of like that bottom tier with like Shanghai and Florida and San Francisco, and kind of moved them up into like those top 7 teams.
No other really even changed.
Yeah, I mean, it really did. It moved them into those top 7 where you're like they could literally take a win off of any team if they have the right day.
Yeah, exactly.
I think for me the best 3 at least Winstons are Gesture, Fissure, and Mono. Not necessarily in that order. I think
what?
Those are the top 3 in my opinion. Gesture, Fissure, Mono, and Muma. I forgot to add Muma.
I was gonna say, dude, Muma has to be in there. His monkeys and
stuff.
I think he's in the debatable category with him.
Muma's like, he's up there too.
I would definitely put him in there. For divas, I would definitely, obviously, Cool Matt.
Cool Matt.
What's his name?
Man, I gotta put Meko in there.
I was gonna say Meko.
You ever watched Poco play?
Poco, Cool Matt, and I'd actually put Geguri in there too. Like
I think she's really good, but I just think there's not.
I don't think she's on the top. Yeah, I don't think she's on that one. She plays. She survives because of her. No, because of the amount of. She plays super defensive. I'm not saying she's bad. I just don't think she's in that group of like how like they're a step ahead of everybody else.
I just haven't seen enough of her.
I don't think she's bad. I think she's solid for him.
The other ones we have like multiple stages now.
Well, the only thing.
Or we just have a few matchups.
Well, I was gonna say, just from what I've seen from her, I mean, all you can judge her on is based off her macro. Wait, no, micro. Micro is the mechanical level, right?
Depends on the game. It changes.
Okay.
The way I think of it is macro, because I go by the way they do it in League of Legends. Macro is like how you move. It's strategy. Micro is your mechanics. Okay.
So let's go based off that. Anyways, her micro is all we can judge her on, because her macro, it's obviously a team-based game, and we know Shanghai is not the best team as far as like strategy and trying to get wins and stuff like that, even as far as talent pool goes. But we can judge her based off of micro, and her micro to me is top notch. I don't think there's very many tanks that have, like, if you just watch from her perspective during the matches, the stuff she's doing is definitely.
Well, I mean,
next
I'd
level.
like to, but it's always on auto or Ado because he's
Yeah. Well, during her first debut, they had a lot of the camera on her, obviously.
Yeah.
But she, I think she's in that league, and that's why I think she's probably one of the top, but we just don't have it. We can't really see the rest of it.
That group for the 4 main tanks that we were just talking about with Muma and Gesture, Fissure, those guys.
We're talking about Winston.
I know, but I'm saying when we were just talking about those group, if it was your team, so like Houston, if someone was like, hey, we're going to swap Muma and Fissure, do you think Houston will do just as well as they were doing with those 2 out? Yeah, probably. I think Fissure could fill the same role. I think Muma could fill the same role on the other team. If you were going to tell me you were going to swap Cool Matt and Geguri out, if you're going to swap those 2, if I thought Houston would perform the same, I don't think so.
Oh, dude, I disagree.
I don't think
I gotta agree with Fish, but the reason is not because like like I said,
I don't think she's bad.
I just don't have enough data to make an.
I just think there's levels to each one of the characters.
Like, look at Siegel. Siegel, first time playing Diva, he looked so fucking crazy good.
First time playing Diva,
like the best Diva like in the world. You know, we have to see.
I don't think he's on the same level as that one either. I just think there's certain people on each of the characters that are in a little bit level ahead of it. I'm not saying she's bad, but I don't think she's on the same level as Whaaat and Poco.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't say she's on their same level, but she's definitely a tier.
I know,
above
but that's the
everybody
argument
else.
we were having was that she's on the same one as them. Well, I'm not saying she's not as good as other people in the league. I'm saying she's not in that like S tier class.
Well, besides Muma and besides Whaaat and Poco, what's a better Diva than Geguri that you can?
I'm not saying she's not in that middle of the line. I'm just saying.
And Meko. I forgot Meko. Yeah.
I'm just not saying she's in that top 3 group with those guys. That's all I'm saying.
Top 3, probably
not in the normal chunk. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. I'm not saying she's bad. I'm just saying she's not as good as that elite
I think
class.
she could be top 5.
I just have to see more of her because the thing I like about the people that we mentioned, like Poco, Meko, and Whaaat, is they all kind of have their own style that plays and helps their team create, like, you know, it's not just that they play it really well, like kind of by the book. Like Poco, obviously, his like really crazy fucking placements with his ultimates and shit, but he's of course still good on everything else. Whaaat has those kind of things, and then he also just does some shit other divas don't. And Meko just generally plays more aggressive than at least the other divas were for quite a while there. Like it was like whenever they switched his POV, the second he saw like any red on the map, he just flew straight at them. It was like fucking them up, which isn't that weird when you think about it, but a lot of divas never really clicked that way. You know, they were used to playing the defensive style, so they wouldn't. He was just like, no, I see things and I kill them. He's like a fucking cat, you know, he just doesn't give a shit. But I
don't know.
I mean, haven't seen it. That's what I'm saying. I just haven't seen enough. She probably has the mechanics to be up there. I agree with you. She probably does, just based on how well she can play Zarya. It's just, I mean, how many games has she? How many series has she played so far?
No, the only reason why I'm going off of this, and I get what you're saying. And you're right. We don't have the data. That's just straight up fact. And not to mention, she is on the worst team in the league. So I mean, you'll have all those things to consider. But just watching her play, she's very cerebral. And I hate to use that because casters use that all the time. But she is a cerebral player. Watching the way she tanks, she's very aware of everything that's happening around her, even when she's not looking at it. Dina. I wish they'd pull up the statistic for how many pulse bombs she blocked because she just knew it was coming in one area, just real quick flicked it like out of the back. Like it was just really insanely timed stuff that like I didn't even notice till after it happened. I was like, oh wow, she was totally prepared for that. Like really good tank play. Whereas I'm used to what's her name? Diva player for why are the words escaping me? Diva player for San Francisco. Who is it? Nevix? Is that Nevix that plays?
Yeah.
Is it Nevix? Yeah, hold on. I need to look this up before I sound stupid. Nevix. Yeah. Oh, wait. Where am I? Yep. Yes. No, Nami. Yeah, it's
Nomi's the main thing.
No, that's right. That's right. Nevix. That's right. Nevix. No. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I'm talking up my ass. No, the reason why. Okay, so like Nevix, he'll get some crazy cool kills with Diva. He's done some like Poco wannabe bombs and stuff like that. But you'll watch him, and a lot of times stuff just happens around him, and he's not really clicking unless the team's clicking. And the reason why I think Geguri might be top tier. Maybe not better than Whaaat. I mean, I don't think anybody's better than Whaaat.
I'm not saying she might not be in A tier. I'm just saying she's not in the S tier with those 3 that we just named.
But but the reason why I think that is because just she does stuff that like is way more impressive to see and is way more impactful for her team. I feel like than other Diva tanks. But like I said, we don't have a lot of data, so that's just
they still haven't won.
Yeah, well, yeah, and I mean, there's a million and one things that go into that, so I don't really know. It's
a different category and character build since we were mentioning earlier. Like gladiators were losing, add Fissure, then they start winning. And Fissure is just fucking everybody in his face, like not in his face, in their face. The way the aggressive he was playing with when he first it was so fun. And then that became kind of a problem, so they kind of losing. But now, like I said, they're starting to get it back.
As a side note, Vox, I forgot to tell you, that Twitch streamer Korean Jesus that we watch.
Yeah,
I popped over to his stream after the NYXL game, and he was watching
Oh, really? I know
Overwatch
he
League.
plays Overwatch every once in a while.
He was watching it, and I went on there and I was like, "Hey, what's up? You watch Overwatch League?" He was like, "Yeah." And then some of his audience was talking about Overwatch League, so I was engaging in conversation with them. And this one guy goes, "I watch every single Shanghai Dragons game." He goes, "Because every time I watch it, I think this is gonna be the day."
That's why I pay attention to him.
Yeah, I think that's why everybody does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I liked Shanghai before the league, so I'm not just gonna not like them because they're bad. Like, in comparison to the other teams, I want them to win, but I don't want to miss out. Like, when it's like Valiant versus Dallas or something. Like, is that a good matchup? I mean, sure, but I don't really care that much. Shanghai versus anybody, I might at least be paying attention to it here and there because I don't want to. I want to be there when they finally win, so I can be part of history. I can be there with Twitch chat.
Dude, I know that's the way I felt that way before.
Dude, I've changed as a person, I guess. I now have I made a like a notepad plus file where I have I've saved spam that I can throw in only for NYXL right now. But I have spam like with the emotes typed out and shit, so I can just control V it in the fucking chat, and then I'm just like, damn, like.
I think that's what. As I say, I think that's what professional spammers do. They have documents
like I said,
queued up.
Come on, New York, stab them with sporks. That one's.
I think they have that. What's that program that gives you multiple control copies? Like you can copy paste, like you can copy like several different things and then paste them out. There's a program for that, and I think some of the spammers do that. They'll have like different ones. So, oh man. But anyways, no. Yeah, no. You're probably right, Fish. Just not S tier.
I think she very well could be. But it could also be for me. I may never end up noticing some of the things that she does that are good just because if she plays like a super defensive style, I don't really have a defensive mindset, so I don't think of things in terms of that. So sometimes I could see myself missing some things that she's doing that are really well just because I'm not seeing what she's doing from the way that she is, right? Like Meko impresses me when I watch him play aggressively because I'm like, go kill it! It's a thing, kill it! And then he just does it, and I love it, But
yeah.
But yeah, I think she'll probably. I mean, at least with I wish.
Wait a minute.
More for Zarya.
Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. Who did we say the top Winstons were?
Winston Wayne's.
Who were the top main tank Winstons? What did we say?
Gesture. Fissure.
Okay.
Luma.
Okay.
And Mono.
Okay. So I got a big problem with that one. Where the fuck is Gamsu?
Gamsu? Oh yeah, well, if we're expanding at the top 5,
yeah,
I think Gamsu. I still think I like the way the Fish's argument went.
I think Gamsu's impact is more. I think Gamsu's more impactful than I would say Fissure.
I think over the course of time, yeah. I mean, he's been a big reason that Boston is consistent.
I was about to say I wanted to circle back.
Really, all the teams that are actually doing well have people that would almost be considered S tier main tanks.
What's his?
That's true.
Well, if we expand it though,
I'm sure that's a big reason of it.
Because Muma, for instance, both Muma and Fissure also have really fucking nasty Reinhardts.
Yeah.
Mono, they never play Reinhardt because they have Janus do that usually.
Yeah.
So I can't say for Mono. He's played it a few times, I think. And then Gesture, I don't know. Is he the Reinhardt player on London? I can't remember. I feel like they don't really play it much either.
No. Well, no one really has.
Yeah, some people. Well, I mean, you see it a lot from Philly, just because Fraggy's the best.
Yeah, because he's the best one.
Even if he's not statistically, he's the best Reinhardt because he's the most entertaining to watch.
You see that?
At the end of the day, this is all about entertainment.
Did you see that first team deaths, and he was the only main tank that has the most first team deaths out of any team in the league?
Is he really?
No, I didn't. That's awesome.
Everyone else, almost everybody, it was their tracer or one of their DPS players, was their first death of their team, and Fraggy was the highest first death out of any of the players on Fusion.
Wow.
I
he plays so aggressive.
I think all these tanks that we mentioned, right? Muma, Houston as a team doesn't play super aggressively, although they did play pretty aggressive versus who did they play earlier in the week?
Philly.
Yeah. They started playing some aggressive dive against them, and it was working against Philly. So they are. It seems like as part of the fact that they improving, like we talked about, they're trying to figure out how to actually play dive, but not like defensive dive, like aggressive dive. So that's good.
Yeah.
But I mean, Muma's good enough that like I'm sure he can. I'm sure if Houston were to play super aggressively like Philly or anything, he.
Well, Fact Fiction was doing most of their
Super
super
good.
aggressive stuff.
Really.
Yeah.
But I feel
Well,
like
they were getting a lot of value out of that too.
The only reason why I'd put Gamsu on a higher pedestal than Fissure is mainly because look at the impact. So the Boston team is a good team, but I think they put a lot on Gamsu's shoulders. It almost to an equal amount of what I think they put on the shoulders of LA Gladiators. Now LA Gladiators has Surefour. He's one of the best DPS there is. And
I know, even though people still don't even talk about it, they forget about it all the time.
So, but look, they're kind of in a similar situation as Boston. Boston is, granted, this isn't taking away from anybody else on these teams, but star players for Gladiators is Surefour and Fissure, and that's kind of like that dynamic. And Boston is a very similar dynamic where they have Striker, and then the supporting staff basically, and then Gamsu. And I think just Boston's win. Like their performance and how often they're winning is just a little bit more indicative of how talented their main tank and their tank line in general is. Maybe it's more of a testament to Note, possibly their bigger success, because Note has been proving himself to be an incredible off tank. But I think a lot of it's on Gamsu's shoulders.
I don't have anything hard to base this off of, but I think mechanically, if Fissure isn't better, they're the same. But I think Gamsu might just play a bit smarter.
Yeah, it's tough to tell, but you can't really argue with the fact that how much better the Gladiators got with him as opposed to not with him.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
That's true.
I don't know if Gamsu's better or not than Fissure, like just mechanically, but I think maybe Gamsu plays a bit smarter, and Boston has started playing a bit. You know what I mean? Like, because sometimes, like I was saying earlier, Gladiators have now kind of reeled back because when you first joined the team, it was just like unrelenting aggression. It was working, but then it stopped working. So now they're like, shoring that up a bit and starting to go in and be a little more cerebral about it. But either way, I don't think Gamsu's out of contention at all for top 5, and it's very. He's for sure top 5. He's probably top 4, but he's like at least for sure.
Yeah, I think all the teams that are like pretty well competitively all have really good main takes. I think that's the real big difference between it.
But they all can play the point I was trying to make with Muma, right? Is Muma doesn't necessarily play aggressively because Houston doesn't, but I'm sure if they did, he could, even though they were playing Fact Fiction, right? Like all the tanks we mentioned, they can play those styles. Whereas with Seoul Dynasty, actually, this thought kind of just occurred to me. I think one of the reasons they haven't looked as strong is their main tank player Miro. He's pretty passive when it comes to most of like in comparison to the other Winstons, he plays pretty passive. There was a time where he was dying like first, like almost every other time, which didn't seem that way. But like as a whole, he's more of a passive tank. And so their sub from Kuki, they almost never play. So can't really say much about Kuki other than pretty sure he seems like a total badass. Like I like Kuki. At least outside of the game, we know he's a badass, right? But we don't see him. So either they're not confident playing with him, or he's not confident playing with them, or his skills they don't think they're up there, or some shit like that. So they play Miro most of the time, right? But he's kind of a passive. So I'm wondering if maybe that's not one of the reasons that Seoul has kind of, been fizzling out a little bit lately, is because they don't have that big fucking, hairy monkey man just like slapping people around on the other team because he's kind of more of a, passive player. I mean, Fleta is still a fucking god.
Just aren't afraid of him.
I think that goes into it too, right? Like you can definitely handle aggression, but it also the thing that's fun about it, right, is like if you're playing against somebody who's super aggressive, even if you know how to handle aggression, you're kind of always still on your toes because you never know exactly when it's going to come at you, right? Like it's going to come at you, so it's kind of like puts you on edge a bit. When they're passive, it's like you can just kind of do your own thing and then deal with what they do when they do it. When somebody like Fissure or like any of them just jumps at you, you're just like, oh shit. But I mean, like, Flood is still a fucking god, So, so it's. I don't think they've had a problem with their DPS. Like Munchkin has been a little less consistent than he was for a while, but wow, my monitor's turned off. Anyway, I think I hadn't thought about it, but I think that might be one of the problems Soul's having. They just don't have they don't have enough aggression from their main tank spot.
Could be.
Well, and I think that's kind of a natural evolution of the game too, because there haven't, before Overwatch League, there wasn't a ton of tier 1 content. There was the World Cup, which was put together by a committee, so it wasn't really as tier 1 as it could be. And before then, there wasn't a lot. There's contenders, But everything was kind of being felt out. But this is the first time that we've had a concrete league in Overwatch. So this is the first time that teams have been able to sit down and really iron out a lot of like stuff that, a lot of fine tuning and refining of the meta and of heroes and kits and how teamwork can evolve into wins. And so I think what we're seeing now is during the beginning, because just look at the way the teams played at the beginning of the league. You saw a lot of defensive, like Houston was killing it at the beginning because they're one of the best defensive teams and people were playing defensively to start. And Houston's evolving still now and they're still doing really good, but just that's kind of an image of their strength is playing defensively. But now that a lot of the fine tuning and the strategies are being refined as the season's progressing, we're seeing more aggressive comps. We're seeing teams that didn't look like they were going to do that well rising up. And I think honestly that's where we're going to start seeing New York losing a little bit more is when the meta is getting more refined, because out of all the teams initially and even now, they are the most refined. Period.
Yeah.
So
well, I think I don't necessarily think they're the most refined when it comes to, like, sometimes they play a bit sloppy here and there, but they have the best synergy with each other and the best like they all play, like they have the best way to play around each other, so they make up for their own mistakes better than any other team does. But
that's not what I meant by refined.
Yeah, I get you. But like, I think that's one of the reasons.
Tracer player, and they don't have to swap their tracer over to the fucking Widowmaker.
Not only a tracer player.
Hold on a second. Jake, during the Houston-New York game, held his own, and he has
he's actually getting a lot better
on his tracer. Yes.
I agree, he is. But the fact that they're still dependent on the map, we're still swapping Linkser and Jake between tracer, just shows that neither one of us are like on that same level as like a Saviobi or something like that.
Well, no one's on the same level.
I know, but
there's
like
a few that are close.
Okay,
like a top tier tracer.
What I still don't understand,
the S tier, right?
What I still don't understand, and to this day it continuously confuses me, is how the fuck is Saviobi one of the best tracers there possibly is, and he cannot land a fucking pulse bomb during that whole game with Boston.
It's a zoning alt.
It's during his.
I say this every time.
During his whole game with Boston, and even during that Houston Outlaws, I would watch it like he's gonna miss, and sure enough,
he did clutch with the triple pulse bomb.
No, he did.
So that's the thing.
Yeah,
he doesn't. He hits like 1% of them, but the 1% he hits are always like these crazy fucking high impact ones, or he baits a Mercy and gets like the perfect kill on both their supports or something.
I don't know if that's intentional.
When you charge your ult in like 10 seconds, does it really matter if you miss almost all the time?
I think it kind of shows that Tracer's ult really isn't the part that makes her that strong as her get.
Yeah,
if he's able to do that and not hit like the majority of them, it doesn't even really matter that much.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'm sorry, I was going over something.
A lot of the time, the standard way the Tracer gets played in the league is you don't even, like 99% of the time, you don't even go for the high impact like kills on supports and stuff with the pulse bomb. That's you try to one clip them and stuff. The pulse bomb most of the time just gets thrown on like a Winston or a D.Va to move her out of her.
It's almost always try to demech a D.Va.
Yeah, it's usually to demech the D.Va. Sometimes if they can stick a Winston, it's to get him just like low, so he has to get out of the fight. It's pretty much like a, it's just like
make him run away.
Utility thing almost. The way it's used. But he's like, nah, fuck that.
Yeah.
No.
Zoning alt.
I know. You have to be memeing on that because it's not real.
I have to be memeing what?
The zoning alt thing, because it's not.
Nah.
It is a zoning alt.
It's a thing, but his zone, if it was his misses have never, at least from what I've seen, have never really been like, oh, but it kept him out of the room. It's just a fucking like swing and a miss. Like half, like point. It's literally
always
nothing.
Throwing it in random fucking spots, not near people. They never know where the fuck that they can go.
Yeah, see, they let their guard down. They're just like they let their guard down. They're like, man, Saviobi doesn't ever hit his ults. And the second you think that, the second you rest because you're like, he's not gonna hit the pulse bomb. He missed the last 20. Yeah. What happens? It's right on your fucking forehead, and shit blows your head off.
Is what you're saying Possible, yes.
I'm pretty sure.
Do I
I'm pretty
think
sure,
that's what's actually happening?
he's
I'm
on
gonna say
stage.
no.
Wrong.
And
He
so-
intentionally
no,
misses.
It's like 400 IQ. He's like, I'm gonna miss
Dude.
this one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Okay.
miss this one in this part of the map.
He
and I'm
gets
gonna
their
miss this one
guard
in this
down,
part of
and
the
then because he's only got to hit the one that has the highest impact, so he
It's a
mind
intentionally
game.
misses the other.
I am going
map.
to
It's a
try.
mind game.
I'm gonna try as
On
best as I
purpose.
can to get Saviolbi on this fucking podcast, so I can ask him and confront him and be like, "Do you miss these on purpose?" And I want
And
to
he's
get a
gonna
straight
go.
answer.
Obviously, Paxfos. What are you,
Obviously.
stupid?
I dude,
You
I
don't
don't
think
know.
I can hit a pulse bomb? I'm a professional player.
I can hit them all.
If
He
he's
doesn't want to get.
if he's missing on purpose, that's some fucking 4D chess, 900
It is.
IQ
Gotta be.
shit, man.
I told
Imagine,
you. it very
imagine
obviously is.
if he hit all of the
Hold
ones
on.
that he wanted to hit, Blizzard would just ban him
Hold
from
on.
the league.
Hold
for
on.
making it anti-competitive.
Yeah, he's got to
If-
ride that fine line of getting Tracer nerfed.
If
Yeah,
SB,
exactly.
oh maybe
Exactly.
okay, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no, but seriously, if SBB is making these 900 IQ plays like you guys are claiming, I would put him. I would say he is the best player in the whole entire league by a long shot. Like
Yeah.
nobody can
He's
come
definitely
close
the
to him.
most
If that's what's going on in his head.
How
Like,
many other
crazy.
players are married?
I think Clockwork, or maybe he has a girlfriend. I'm not sure.
Aren't
not
most of
sure.
the players like 20?
Yeah.
I think yeah. Well, I think
Like, I
probably
bet the
closer to-
average age is really low.
It's
It
18
is,
to 20, guaranteed,
Yeah.
somewhere around there. But no, I think the old because the oldest person I think is Clockwork. It's either Clockwork or Dante, which is hilarious. But
I always think Siegel's like 35, but he never is. Every time one was.
I think the
Siegel has
oldest.
to be
I think the oldest
35.
player is like 28, something like that. Maybe I'm not sure. It's somewhere.
Kinda
around
looks
there.
pretty old, but I guess he's not.
No,
No, he just.
he
It's,
just
it's
looks
the Jack
weathered
in the
from the
Box.
battle shits.
The
Jack in the Box.
He's gone to too many wars. The Jack in the Box.
Yeah, the bathroom there, man.
He's
Oh
been
my
in too many
goodness.
high impact fights.
Well, I did want to steer the conversation a little bit away from that and kind of go
From
into
shit, from shitting, and
from
fast
Jack in the
food.
Box.
Why would you want to steer away from that?
No, go back.
No, because I actually wanted to talk about the last patch that hit as far as balance concerns. Not really balance concerns, but more so how it's going to affect the meta, and inevitably, because stage 4, stage 4 will be played on with Brigitte and with the buffs that have happened here. So the May buff, the Reaper buffs, the slight Zenyatta nerf, the slight Diva nerf, and all that.
You're gonna see Linkser break out the God tier May. That's what's gonna happen.
Well, I'm curious. Well, how Brigitte is going to change the meta, because that's going to be the big one, because she definitely has an anti-dive styled kit. What that's going to do to the current dive, quarter dive, adjusted dive meta, or if any of this other stuff like the Reaper buffs or the May buffs is going to, or if that's going to be, I'm wondering if that's going to just adjust it to where we have a more diverse playstyle, kind of like what we saw a little bit with the Mercy meta, or if we're going to see just like, if just Death Ball is just right back in the
We're gonna see Brigitte and Moira, and it's gonna be a full tank dive comp.
Oh,
Full tank dive.
that'd be Death Ball, and that'd be terrible. I would hate that. Oh my goodness. But
I wonder. I just wonder if Brigitte's gonna be.
If she's gonna be able to
if
heal
she's-
enough.
If it's gonna be like a thing with Ana when Ana was like first released, right? Where it's like they always play her, like they never won't. Or if it's just gonna be certain maps. where you
she's
comp, you
she's
know?
definitely not as strong as pre-nerf Ana. Because when Ana was initially released, she had like, I don't know, 4 rounds or 6 rounds in her gun, some other stuff like that. But then they buffed her, I think, between 1 or 2 patches, and then after that, she was a must-have and a staple all the way up until they nerfed the speed boost. And actually, even past that point, I believe, I think she was staple until Mercy meta for most part. Oh no, before then. I'm sorry. So I don't think Brigitte's on that level.
Ana's same
But
shit, I just
but
don't
Brigitte
know.
is an enabler for comps. She's very comp centric. It's not like Lucio or it's not like Lucio or Zenyatta where they can really hold their own kind of regardless of what the comp is. Actually, more so Zenyatta and even Mercy, because Mercy you could just like we saw that during Mercy meta. You could just throw her in anything. You can put her in any comp. I mean, Houston does that a lot. Bonnie plays a lot of Mercy.
Dive with Mercy.
Yeah, you can throw her into anything. Whereas Brigitte, her kit is so specific that you kind of can't do that.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what I kind of wonder. I wonder if it's gonna be like, or are the pros gonna think that she's so good that they just center all their comps around like including her?
Which they could.
I'm not saying they will. I don't know.
Well, with the shield and stuff,
We'll
they might be able to just run like really hard McCree comps too, because you can protect the fuck out of him when your healer has a literal shield she can put up when someone tries to get a dive kill on him.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just some way you can use it. I don't know what the hell they're actually going to do with it, but it might open it up to run people like that. Maybe, maybe that, maybe the Hanzo even, because you can just literally protect him from getting attacked. Like, I think she opens them up into being able to use healers that are usually vulnerable and can't really get away.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, her
but who the hell knows what they'll actually do? Like, they're all so much better than all of us that play. You can't really know what the fuck they can do with it until you see them use it.
Yeah, we thought there might be, a fucking deathball comp coming after Mercy got nerfed in March.
Yeah, it was going to turn into that tank group. So. But they were just like, no, we're good enough mechanically. We don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That's actually, and it's something I think we all did, but me especially, I underestimated how much farther mechanically the pros were than anybody else even in top 500. Like, it's definitely a sizable difference, because we were watching contenders when Moira was introduced and Mercy was nerfed. It was like all tank comp.
They were still breaking out the tank comps.
Yeah, and I was like, oh shit. But then, when it came to the pros, I mean, it was like a non-issue. They're really just that much more mechanically skilled.
They really have a separate meta.
Well, I mean, they do run the tanks on, like certain points in a way.
Sometimes,
right? But
I don't know how much.
I don't think it's necessarily.
But they were actually doing a lot of the like triple quad for a little while there.
No, I catch contenders every once in a while when I see it's on.
Yeah,
and I'm not
they were running
anything,
some of that though, like the really tank heavy comps, because you can get away with it with a lower skill cap.
I don't think it has to do necessarily with the fact that obviously the Overwatch League players are way better mechanically and shit. Like, I didn't underestimate that. I just don't think that's like the main reason they decided to not stop playing dive. Because if that were the reason, like if Deathball were like 100% better, like just stats wise. All it would have taken was a few teams to do it anyway, and then it would have worked. It's just that, like, they wanted to keep going the way that they wanted to play.
I don't think that it's necessarily like better. I was just saying that like up to like that like 80% of the player base or whatever, you might be able to get more value out of running the tanks instead. And then once you get to players where they're that much better, then you can like bridge and get away from them.
Oh yeah. I just mean, like, obviously they're the best in the world. So if
I got what you're saying.
If the best way to play was the tanks, like, then they would play it. It's just that we were wrong in thinking.
I just think for like the majority of the player base is going to have a different way that works better for them, because they don't have people that can do that sort of stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's going to be that way in any game, pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even if.
Yeah. So. The other thing that happened last patch, I think this was last patch, maybe it was the patch before, is that, no, it was last patch. They had the avoid player feature. So you are avoid teammate. So you can't just avoid somebody in the enemy team because you don't like playing against them, but you can avoid. It's only your own teammate that you can choose to have this. And we've already seen evidence of this working.
Like the next day, where it was Fui or whatever.
Fui 500 is.
I was reading comments, and it's not like I'm surprised, but there were still people trying to defend like that sort of behavior. And I was like, you people just won't learn. Like, those people won't learn. They should just like. I wish there was a way. I wish there was some sort of like neurological, psychological test that we could force people to take before they could play like competitive modes, like the ranked modes in video games. And it's like, if you're not actually gonna like really try to win, if you're not willing to do things you don't want to do to try to win, if you're not actually competitive, just don't play that shit.
Yeah, no, it's It's really ridiculous.
They paid for it. They can play they want. There's 5 other people on their team that want to play the game the best way possible, and that one person is ruining it. Not only that, but those people, that person, they can play quick play just the same as they can play, because if they're obviously not doing as much, like all that they can to win and rank up on the ladder. That's not their primary goal. So they should not be playing fucking comp. They should just be playing quick play or arcade. You know, like really, those are parts of the game too.
It's really fucking stupid. If
that's like what those modes are designed for. Sorry, those people, right?
Yeah.
Like, or I mean, not only those people. It's like I could play competitively, but I'll play quick play and shit just because I want to, just take it easy or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, like those modes exist for a reason.
It's fucking stupid to think that you have to explain to somebody that a competitive multiplayer game based off of fucking beating the enemy team, that it's ridiculous that you have to spell it out to them that you like trying to win is part of playing the fucking game. Like that should be innate in human nature to, if you're in a competitive environment, to try and win.
There's people that argue, they're like, oh, well, I mean, obviously they have above a 50% win rate, so they can't be holding the team back that bad because they're not losing. I'm like, but you miss the bigger picture, right? All it takes is one person to lock in Symmetra or Torbjorn, and it's not necessarily that it's not that they lock in that hero and they suck with that hero, so they lose the game, right? They're good with that hero. They can play that hero well. But those picks, they practically force the rest of the team. The other 5 players then have to change their strategy around that one pick. So they have to stop playing the way that they want to, the way that they think is the best, to support the one asshole who won't fucking just get over themselves. That's what people don't seem to that's what the people who defend them don't seem to understand. And it's retarded because they use the same argument well, they can play what they want, but yeah, the way that you want to play is forcing 5 other people to not play how they want. So how does the majority not win? In that sense, if you're trying to fucking use that argument, then the majority has to win every time. It's better for 5 people to get to play their game than it is for 1.
They don't understand that they have above a 50% win rate because everyone else on the team completely plays around
that. Yeah, also that, right? They play around them because
that's why they have that. Because
more than they want.
If you're in the top 500, you probably have a little bit of a hero pool around you that you can swap into.
But I mean, it's shitty for them because then they have to fucking swap. That's what these people don't seem to understand. It's come on,
it really speaks to the guys playing in the top 500 that they can find a way to win with a Symmetra run every time on the team.
Well, and Fui 500 made a long post about it, basically saying, kind of defending his position and just being like, well, I don't care if you use the avoid feature. I didn't want you in my game anyways because you're toxic. It's like, look, man, toxic, not toxic. It doesn't. You're the one that's being toxic simply by playing Torbjorn every time. Fui is not nearly Steve-O trolls people in his chat, just Steve-O. Whenever he's playing just Symmetra and whatnot. But Fui 500 he generally tries to work around the team. He's most of the time friendly in chat and stuff like that. That's fine. But that still doesn't make what you're doing any less stupid.
I'd much rather have somebody be an asshole in the chat but still be playing something competitive and doing what they're doing, right? Because I could just mute them and I don't see what kind of retarded shit they're typing. But if they're still contributing if they're still contributing their share to the 6, it doesn't matter what kind of dumb shit's going through their head, and if they feel it's annoying that they have to throw it in the chat and stuff, that's but as long if they're still playing well.
If you're playing and the majority of the people on your team are constantly trying to avoid having to get into another game with you, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, obviously.
And the other thing, and I understand this from a monetary standpoint. The reason why Fui 500, Steve-O, and the other one, Colorblind, the Colorblind Bastion main who only plays Bastion.
I've never even heard of that guy.
Yeah,
well, the entertainment, right? That's what they say.
The reason why they're doing this.
My chat.
Well, I was going to say, the only reason why they're doing this is people watch them, follow them, subscribe to them, just because they want to see this. And I couldn't. The reason why they started doing this to me is bullshit, but I can kind of understand that they started out and they're making money and they're getting notoriety because of this, and so they're like, well, I just got to keep doing it now. I mean, even if I don't want to, this is where I'm making my money. Which I would counter that argument by saying, evolve your fucking content.
Well, yeah, that's what I was about to say.
That's what I would say.
Yeah, I understand. It's hard, and change is fucking scary, and it's I built up all this thing. What if they start changing their play style and then they I mean, yeah, what if nobody wants to watch them because the only reason that they garnered a following was because they were a toxic like shithead? Well, maybe that's not the job for you, really and truly. Like, the only way you can subsist, like the only way you can continue to function in this property is by like ruining other people's experiences. You may not be better off, but it'd be nice if you would take one and just like. But I mean, they should at least have some following that will stay with them even if they decide to switch and stuff. I mean, we've seen plenty of streamers like they do one thing all the time and then they fucking do other stuff and they dip in numbers and stuff, but then they garner, because you lose to people like if you played CS:GO a shit ton, right?
Yeah.
And then like you stop playing it, right? Obviously, a lot of people who watch you specifically for CS:GO, a lot of them are gonna like stop watching you if you don't play anymore. But if you're like entertaining, or if you have any other redeemable factors, like let's say you're playing Overwatch now, right? If you have any other redeemable factors, there should be then people who like stick around because they like both games and they still want to watch you play like, the game. It doesn't matter. And there'll be you should be able to garner people who haven't seen you because they didn't pay attention to CS:GO, but they pay attention to Overwatch. Now can come into your channel and stuff because, like I said, if you have any other redeemable factors.
I was gonna say that you can definitely transition and it not suck. The best example of that is Moon Overwatch, massive, probably one of the biggest Twitch streamers for Overwatch in particular, has a big following, right? What got him big was Overwatch. Okay, he started playing that. It's where all people wanted him to watch. He started wanting to play other stuff, transition to other things, transition his content. He did so in a very methodical, very, I guess methodical is the best word for it, manner. And he has been able to maintain his viewer base, if not grow it, while not just playing Overwatch, but playing other stuff as well. Same thing with, she's a smaller Twitch streamer, but Yui. The polar opposite of this example would be DSP Stanky. He was the Lucio guy, right? Like thousands of people watching him. He wanted to transition, didn't do a good job, and now he averages like, I don't know, 50 viewers, 100 viewers, as opposed to maintaining that amount of people. You have to, and it's harder when you have a strong hook like him being a one trick. Steve-O, Fui, and Colorblind, they all have that one trick problem where transitioning to other content would be difficult, but it's not impossible. You can do it. And they need to do it.
Like I said, as long as they have as long as there's another reason, like as long as it's not the only reason, as long as the one thing that you do isn't the only reason that people watch you should be able to transition, even if it's slow or it's like, whatever, you should be able to. But
exactly.
if people only watch you because of the one fucking thing you do,
excuse me,
right? Like that's a good time to self-reflect, right?
Yeah.
That's a good time to like take a step back, because the other thing too is like you're saying too, I can sympathize and get to that. It's like let's say they're sitting there and they hate themselves, right? But they want to keep making the money or whatever. There are still more people than a lot of people would think that would be willing to like go with you in the change, because they'd rather see somebody be genuine, like, and just be themselves and actually do stuff than fucking like force themselves to do the other thing. Because you can kind of tell after a while, you know, when someone's boning it in and shit, like a fucking scummit, man.
Yeah,
that fucking guy. I used to watch way back when he was a genuine dude, and then fucking guy went.
And like for instance, DSP Stanky, I liked watching him originally because he was really good at Lucio, and he got me into playing Lucio. But I ended up just watching him just because I liked his commentary. He's funny. He had a good attitude, and it was really fun to watch that. And then he kind of just dissipated and didn't brand out, and then kind of fell to the wayside. But like,
did he keep his attitude the same, or like
wavered? But like his schedule wavered. He didn't transition slowly. He just did cold turkey, no more Overwatch, and so like. Yeah, the view that never works out, and for anybody, you have to layer the transition in. If you're gonna switch from one game to another, you have to weave it in.
That's because I wonder, like, how much of his persona came from him, like, enjoying, like he really enjoyed playing Lucio and stuff. Then when he stopped enjoying Overwatch, it wasn't just like part of his personality that you saw was the fact that he was like, really enjoying with Overwatch. So I'm wondering if like one of the reasons that he kind of faltered was because he didn't keep the same, like his persona like switched, not just the game he played, but he also switched in a way that he wasn't able to recover from because he wasn't like he wasn't bringing this, you know what I mean? You know what I'm trying to get at?
I get you. Yep.
Because that happens too with some people. It's like they enjoy this game and then they're like, oh, I don't enjoy this game, but then they go play a different game. But it's not like the same person just playing a different game. It's now a different person playing a different game. So it's like jarring.
Yep. No, I definitely. So, but no, going back to it, that's these one tricks that are famous for it, and their money and their fame, what they're doing is based off of this. I say that it's kind of funny because we're called One Trick Hero. But
Yeah.
But anyways, no, but they need to diversify for sure.
Yeah, but we're the One Trick Hero. Like they're One Trick Zeros, man. They're assholes.
Ooh.
They're like One Trick villains.
Got him.
Got him.
So before we close out today, the other thing I wanted to do, just an honorable mention to Mistakes from Boston Uprising for filling that role. And actually, I want to give the shout out to Boston Uprising, period. They lost their most notable player. Like Gamsu and Striker were definitely obviously notable, and they're arguably even more talented than Dreamcasper was. But Dreamcasper stole the show for them, like almost every single match. That's all the casters could talk about was Dreamcasper, and for good reason. He's really good. They lost that, and a lot of times, it's even in real sports, when you lose the head, the person that's getting you the fame, the money. And he was also doing a lot of shot calling, so they lost their shot caller.
Was he? I didn't know he was doing shot calling.
Yeah, they lost a lot when they lost Dreamcasper. So they went from that and their backup Mistakes, who had seen no game time up until this point, and then
no, he'd played a few. He had played a few matches
in the preseason.
Not entirely, but no. They put him in.
When did they sub him in? I don't remember that.
Once. I can't remember the matchup, but I know he played at least once in the Casters.
Okay. Well, the point still
it wasn't frequent. It was only like once or twice.
I'll say the point still being very little game time, if at all.
He beat up on Shanghai.
And but he was playing versus NYXL and was doing good. You don't just go up against NYXL with like one game under your belt and be like, yeah, I'm gonna look badass. But he did.
I guess you do if you're Russian.
Well, yeah. But no, he did really good. I was very impressed with his gameplay, but not only just that, how well Boston pulled themselves up from this.
I gotta agree, but I also wonder, right? How much is like, maybe it's even easier, right? Not playing around like a player who's probably focused more on like how impressive their plays can be to 14-year-olds and 16-year-olds. maybe Mistakes is more focused on winning than impressing people, so that he can get some stuff on the side, right? So maybe that unlocks a bit of their potential, right? Maybe that was something that was holding him back. Is like Dreamcasper's like, hang on, dude, I can get this fucking 5-man ult, and then I'll just get I'll get all the underage girls from that. Obviously, I'm kidding, but Boston played really good. I didn't expect. They were a really good team. I didn't doubt that they would recover, but I didn't think it would be. I didn't think it would just be like, okay, Dreamcasters off the roster, and then, we're just at least as good, if not better, the next week. I thought it was going to be like, at least a week or so of time where they're trying to figure out what to do without him, because, he did do a lot of work for the team, but they didn't.
Yeah,
they recovered.
You think
really,
there'd have been
really,
a little bit
really,
of
really
a drop off?
Yeah. Where's it going with that? But no, either way, I'm impressed by Boston. They're picking themselves up by the bootstraps, further enforcing my belief that how well they're doing is due to their infrastructure, a large chunk to their infrastructure, and there's no way they could come back by losing a DPS so fast and so well if it weren't for an amazing coaching staff and support staff, and of course the teammates. They're all showing their true colors. Literally, Team Grasper. They're all showing their true colors, and
Team Grasper.
Yeah, and they're doing good though.
I haven't seen. Have you guys seen any more? I've been looking every once in a while, but I haven't seen any more official news on
It's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while.
Yeah, I mean, I know they will.
But there's no way that girl there's no way she doesn't press charges, and if she doesn't. Even if they don't press charges, it's still a crime. It's like a federal.
It's a criminal
crime.
issue now. It really doesn't matter what she does.
Yeah, that's what I mean, and it's in the public eye. So the only way that I know of that now, I'm only an expert on bird law, of course, but with human law, I think the way it works is that even if they don't press charges, it's literally a crime, and it's even federal because it's across state lines. So
It's
and it's in the
criminal.
public eye. So there's no way that like
Yeah.
they won't just
And
ignore it
it's
unless
child porn.
Dream Casper has like the most ridiculous like fucking lawyers ever that just stop it, can stop shit before it even like I don't know. Because like the thing is like the parents are press charged. That's the government. That's like if like let's say I came to your house and like I just murdered like like you, right? And
Yeah.
then it's like Alyssa was like,
That
"Oh,
makes
I'm not.
sense.
Yeah, I murdered you." And then Alyssa's like, "Well, I'm not pressing charges." It's like,
She's like, yeah,
what
it's
is that?
cool.
It doesn't matter. Like you murdered somebody, and that's wrong
Right.
by the books.
It's gonna alter the way the case is handled.
And I know it'll take time. I dislike the like normal trend for these kind of things to be like really blown up and then people just forget about it.
No.
Not because I think it's not like an issue where if we forget about it he'll get away with it or anything. It's just like I want
see justice
to see
done. Yeah.
and know justice served because I'm a Ret Pally and my heart and I need it to happen.
Oh my goodness. Oh yeah, the last thing that I did want to talk about. I'm sorry, I know I said mistakes was the last thing. Jeff Kaplan making that quote to Kotaku saying queuing system for specific roles in Overwatch could hurt these.
I didn't see that. Wait, what?
Game.
Say it again. Run it by me one more time.
Queuing system for
real
specific
slow.
Queuing. Okay. Queuing system for specific
wait.
roles in
Hang on.
Over.
Can you make it like more sultry? Like it's better.
Hold on. Queuing system for specific
It's the
roles
same as you did it
in
last time.
Overwatch could hurt spirit of the game.
Yeah,
That's as good.
Oh, that's
as
this
good.
is how,
Dude, I
that's
guess
just
as
how
low
you-
as I can
No,
go.
no.
I can't
I think
go
that's
any
just
lower
how you
than
do it
that.
anyway. You're just like, hey, wife, I'm going to do things to you. It's like, oh!
Anyways, but he was saying that the queuing system for specific roles in Overwatch could hurt the spirit of the game. Could. Now, I don't agree with that.
I do. That's
I
not what
can
they want it
remember
to do.
the-
They don't want people to be locked into specific roles. That's
It's
what
not
they want.
It's
I
not
don't-
like
It's
No,
not
go
gonna
ahead.
fix the issue. You know what I mean? I think that's the main thing. If putting queues in, it might help a little bit, but it'd be like putting a band-aid over it. It's not gonna fix what's going on with it.
I think
I think it'll help a lot. It
Well,
helped a lot in League of Legends.
the
But like I've said
problem-
before, like a long time ago,
well,
it's totally different ways. So there's way different hurdles to creating
Mhm.
something like that in Overwatch than there is other games. But I still
It's
think
not a
it's
set
something.
comp.
I think it's something that they should look for ways to go about doing it, right? Because you could figure out ways to get it so that it's not a hard like stuck thing. Like I'm just spitballing here, right? Like let's just say, okay, you queue for DPS, you can only play. Well, first of all, if they put a system like this, they definitely need to do what we've mentioned before, where they overhaul and retune, like redefine what the heroes' roles are, right?
yeah.
Okay. So like, you can't have, if you have a role queue, you can't have any shit where like Symmetra is a fucking support. No, okay, that's not a support hero. Don't fucking let somebody queue as a healer and then pick Symmetra. But my point is that, okay, so let's say they fix the categories, right? So you have the actual DPS or DPS, no defensive offensive, just DPS, like healer, tank. And then let's say you were to get locked into fucking like you queue for DPS, you can only play DPS. What if there's like, I'm not saying this is good or anything, but let's just say there's like a vote system, right? Like you go, okay, can you put this person can switch to tank, and then if your team votes like the majority, then that person can then go and switch the role to tank or whatever. That's not perfect, but I just mean there's ways to do it, but the onus is on Blizzard. But I think that where he's coming from, it's something I thought for a while. It's not new, but like there was a Blizzard comment that put it pretty well. A Reddit comment actually, and it was like there's like what the developers wanted Overwatch to be originally, call it like Doverwatch. And I really wish I could find this to give this person credit since I'm using like part of their anyway. And then there's like the reality of Overwatch now, which is like Roverwatch, right? Like D-Overwatch and R-Overwatch. D-Overwatch, it makes sense. Like, why would you ever have any specific roles? Everything's super fluid. You can switch on the fly. There's no meta. There'll never be a meta for this game because you can always constantly keep switching things up and shit. But then in reality, especially when you have a big pro scene, there is going to be a meta, and there is going to be things that are just straight up hard fact, like better than other things.
Yeah.
So once that's happened, I feel like there should be some sort of a way to allow people to get, a more direct approach to what they want to play, because the biggest thing that it like helps with, honestly, even if you don't like, is talk a lot, like it's almost kind of crazy how much less toxicity. There's still plenty, but there's a lot less toxicity of a certain type when you have something like that, because people, when they go into a game and they know they get to at least start doing what they want to do in the game,
Yeah.
it's like it gives people outlets.
Maybe, but if it's hero queue now, what does that mean? Does that mean it's 2-2-2 every game? Does that mean 1 healer, 3 tank, 3 DPS?
Yeah.
Like, because that falls into it.
2-2-2
Then
is like the meta, but
how frustrating would it be if you queue in, so you queue damage because you're not going to play anything else normally, and let's say we get into a situation where like it's just you and me playing a game of comp together, so we're just queuing as 2 people, and we get in there and we're like, man, okay, you know what? I think if you run Zarya and I swap off running the tank with what we're doing, and I swap over and play McCree or something like that, we'll have a better chance because I can play McCree, but you can play Zarya better than I can, and I can play McCree to a better extent. So that's the swap we want to make. We can't do that because we're locked into a role. So we're like, hey guys, let us swap. We want to do this, and they're like, no, you can't swap, or no, we can't vote.
That's why you would have to do. This is what I don't know if you were here for that. Maybe it was just Vox and I having this conversation, possibly. But this is why we're saying they would have to do a soft role queue. So you would queue up. Let's say you queue up as DPS, right? So you get into a queue that, and so the game would start you off at 2-2-2. It would take 2 people that wanted to play tank, 2 people that wanted to play healer, and 2 people that wanted to play DPS. Put you in the game. You are not locked into that role. So when I play DPS, I can now switch to a healer.
Well, that's
going to
change your queue times too, though.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
I don't.
Of course.
Just like WoW. So what's going to stop people from just queuing into whatever the hell they want, just so they get a quicker queue time?
Well, first of all, okay. So let's say the punishment would be, so let's say I'm a DPS main, but I'm tired of the DPS queues, so I queue as healer. Okay, and I get in the game, get to healer, and I immediately switch to DPS, and that's affecting the game, okay? This is something that's super identifiable. You clearly queued as healer, but then you went as DPS even though we asked you to. So then you have a report feature. Part of the report feature is your team goes, dude, that dude queued as healer, and he went DPS. And then make that reporting feature very strict. So if this guy has like 10 reports or, 15 reports for playing DPS when he was supposed to be playing healer, boom, now you got a ban or suspension or something. But that hard locks
you into playing something. Because what if you're playing and you're playing with a group and you're like, we're not getting any value, I need to go DPS.
Hold on. That's why they would have a 4th queue option, which would be flex. You can have.
Hang on. I think. Well, because
still, but then you have to. Then everyone would just queue as a flex.
Well, I agree.
If everybody queues as a flex, then
whatever
everybody
they want.
I agree with. Well, I agree with both of you right now, right? Because there is one thing, right? Like I said, that's why I think there's so many hurdles to getting a system like this. But I don't think just because there's hurdles and obstacles that make it seem really weird, it shouldn't be something that should be like aimed towards.
Oh, absolutely. No,
as a whole, like I said, it's totally different the way the games work. So I'm not doing like a hard comparison, but League, like the quality of games in League went up like
dramatically
so
with that
when they introduced the kind of role queue. Now they do it, it's easier to define a meta in that game, and there's hard, clear like roles and stuff. So like I said, it's you can't do it the same way. There is some things that like they have, for instance, the way it works in League is you have a main role that you pick, and then you have a off role that you pick.
Yeah. The
way that it took a while for them to get systems working, but the way it works is your main role you get majority of the time. If there's like they had to build a bunch of systems to balance it out, but like if the queue time is going to be too long for you to get your main role, it'll put you in your like off role. And then there are times where sometimes it can't find you a good competitive match for both, so it'll put you in as it forces you to fill. But then when you're get forced to fill, what ends up happening is that you then have a like timer on you after you play that fill game that prevents you from being put in the fill queue for a certain amount of games or like a certain amount of time. So again, these systems aren't like things that would work just interjected in Overwatch, but like there was a lot of problems even with the way League works, and Riot was able to figure out a way to get around it. I know Blizzard figured things out.
The thing about it is that Overwatch is a complicated game because of the fact that you can switch heroes at any given time, and what you're bringing to the board, to the game, changes at any given moment based on what you're picking. because it is a complicated game, the solution is going to be complicated. The solution is not going to be easy. And the thing is, people don't like complicated, and complicated isn't easy to chant and rant on Twitter and Reddit and all that stuff. So the solution is going to be something that's going to be difficult and something complicated and contrived, but that doesn't mean it's not going to, it doesn't mean difficult and complicated does not mean bad. It just means it's difficult and complicated.
We should still look to it.
Yeah.
I think it should still be a goal in the future. And maybe it is. But I mean, like you were saying too with the report thing, right? That's something there's been a lot of criticisms around, like, for other instances, right? Blizzard needs to be more on top of, like, taking disciplinary action against people who have, like, proven themselves plenty of times to get, what we're talking about, the one trick stuff, talking about people throwing, talking about all kinds of other shit.
Yeah.
I think from personal experience, other developers, well, okay, let's just say, I already talked about Riot, right? Riot seems to be a little bit, like, more strict and like, okay, these are the rules. Okay, you broke them, so we're gonna fucking ban you. Whereas Blizzard, sometimes it seems like they're still in this fucking weird phase where they're just like, do we want to be an asshole? Like, no, they're rules. If you break them, you're done. That's how it should work, right? Like, they start off with a certain amount of ban. So Blizzard themselves, I do love Blizzard, but sometimes they do some shit that I'm like, okay, that very much just seems like you're being lazy and shit, like a lot of times, right? And they're not the only developer, but if this, depending on how the systems are found out, right? Like the system we were talking about earlier, you have a soft queue, right? Obviously, to make up for that, they're going to have like a more expanded team who's devoted to just taking these reports and actually, like, really quickly being on top of that shit and banning people. They got to be, those kind of reports got to be way more serious than certain other things. But however, what's going to stop people in that instance, right? Like, let's say let's say you're a DPS, you queued for DPS, you play DPS, but you have a bad game. What if people just report you, like, for fucking, doing the fucking shit just because you're a bad DPS or something, right? I'm not saying that means that it couldn't work. It's just that Blizzard, that's going to put a lot of extra fucking shit that they're going to have to do, which they should. I mean, they fucking want this game to be the greatest game in the world. They should, fucking do it.
That makes sense.
Right? But there's other things too, like, the hard queue or the off roll, or like, let's say if you queued, like, let's say I queue DPS and then I queue as my off roll as, like, tank. Let's say both hero pools are, like, available to me, right? Like, I can play DPS heroes, I can pick tank heroes, and then if you were the opposite, then we could still swap in the situation you were talking about, potentially, stuff like that. I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, there's no easy solutions, but they should definitely be finding them, because I would rather, like, I played DPS in fucking MMOs. I mean, you guys know this and shit, but, like, anybody listening, I became the DPS queue, right? I do not go into an MMO and queue for something like 40-minute queue. Fuck my life. I'm gonna play tank. I just go, well, that's the drawback that I have from deciding to just do damage to shit and kill shit. So I just take it with a grain of salt. I'm not, obviously not everybody's me, but personally, I would prefer, like, longer queue times if it meant that I get to go into every game at least having a better shot at what I want to play. Now, also, the other thing too is, if it comes out in waves, right? Like, let's say there's an early wave and they adjust let's say just the early part of it is adjusting. Like, it's not a hard queue, right? It's not a hard, like, you don't queue for a role, but they adjust their matchmaking thing to try to fill in the teams to not just be, like, good SR, but they try to do, like, two main DPS, two players who primarily play DPS, two players who primarily play tanks, and two players who primarily play, like, support, like healers and shit, right? And they have, like, they introduce certain things that, on the back end flag profiles for this sort of thing and shit, right? So you go into those things. At the very least, something like that would improve games quite a bit, because then you'd have a much higher chance that you get into a game with a balanced amount of people who play, like, those roles. There's another issue that comes up with that, right? Like let's say I play a shit ton of DPS, but I want to try practicing, like, healers or something, right? But it could be an issue, but you could also, that's kind of what casual modes are for too. It's not ideal, eventually you're going to have to go, but, like, again, there's problems. There's no easy, like, this works in 100% of situations, but it should be something, I think.
I think it sounds good on paper. I just feel like it, I think because of the way Overwatch works, that's doing an implemented 2-2-2 system or something like that for your queue system. I think it's just going to lead to extra headaches and make people just be like, you know what, fuck this. This is too much. I'm not doing this.
I think I think if done right, I think it'll do the
I
opposite.
don't think so.
But I think the big problem is they just want Overwatch to be the baby exactly like they did. Because developers do that a lot, and I can respect it, right? Like they created this thing, they want it to be. But at a certain point, you know, when you put it in the public's hands and then it's about them, then at a certain point, your duty should shift, not to pleasing all the people and doing everything they want, of course, right? But if the way you wanted the game, like if Blizzard woke up tomorrow, right, and was just like, we're removing all the hero classes from WoW because we originally, like, they only want the vanilla classes because they're like, that's how we originally intended WoW, fuck everything else. That'd be pretty fucking stupid, right? Like, you know,
I agree.
That'd be pretty dumb. So
no, you know. I don't think the problem with Overwatch is I don't think the problem with Overwatch is how complicated it is. I think the problem with Overwatch is how simple it is. It's a very complicated game, and everything around it is way oversimplified. And the perfect proof of the pudding of that is the way they did rank initially. People wanted MMR, but they started with just a 0 to 100, or it was 0 to 10 actually. I don't remember. It was just the rank system. Yeah, the rank system was super. No, before even that. So there was the original, when the game launched, it was to 100. But before that, they had like a Hearthstone system, or it was even more rudimentary.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And
I didn't play beta.
It was very, very basic, like very rudimentary. Their interface, the menus, and everything, the way they built the game is to make it super simple and easy, and that's cool. But the thing is, at a high level, this game is complicated. There's a lot of little things that are happening, and you can't.
And that's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing at all. But
sometimes they act like it is.
But the problem is that because it's complicated, they need to have things to help and back up how complicated this game is. Like, I know the game's been around for 2 years. We do need a replay feature at some point. We're gonna need that. We need,
at the very least, a fucking match history.
We need
so I can go to my profile or your profile or Dickie Jones's fucking profile, and just like the last 5, 10, whatever matches.
I appreciate
heroes they played, and like, you know.
I appreciate the aesthetic and detail of how beautiful Overwatch is, because it's a beautiful game. If you disagree with that, you're a fucking idiot. It's a beautiful game. However, they need to have more stuff, and that's not just including menus and art and artistry and the way the stuff is presented in the game.
Or how about a fucking button when you queue competitive, so that everybody who's in there
says ready up.
Yes, I'm ready to play a fucking competitive game.
Exactly.
You accidentally hit fucking queue competitive when you're playing with your quick play hero friends, and then it instant queues you and you're just stuck losing fucking SR.
Exactly. This is stuff that they need to have in this game for it to be to the next level of a competitive game on the back end. I mean, Paladins has this shit. Paladins has a match history and a replay feature and a ready up button, and even if you're alt tabbed, a little box comes up, says, hey, your game's ready. Now, alt tabbing this game is buggy as shit. It's in beta, whatever. But the point being is they have a baseline of these features. Aesthetically, it's not even close to Overwatch.
Have the technology?
Oh, absolutely. But in Overwatch, I know they got a lot of stuff going that they're working on, but this is something that if you want this game competitively,
indie company, right, guys? So
but this
can't expect too much.
These are the things that if you want this game to thrive competitively, you gotta have them. You just have to.
Yeah.
The Overwatch League is getting big. I mean, it's a big esport. It's getting 150,000 people watching it every time, and we're not even in playoffs. People want to love and watch this game. In fact, I see countless threads on Reddit, people talking about, dude, I love watching it. I hate playing it. They need to improve.
I was reading stuff like that too.
Yeah, they need to improve the experience. And a lot of that is going to come from adding features that people need and making complicated systems to supplement how complicated at its root level this game is. That's the beauty of Overwatch, is it's super simple, but at on a base level, like jumping like, oh, this guy has 3 buttons, this is fun. And on the entry level, it's simple, but on the back end, there is a ton of strategy that is really complicated. They need to have systems to enforce that.
And I know that like a lot of people, what a lot of people get turned off by when they're talking about they love watching they hate playing is just because for the most part it's such a big like it's so up in the air with what kind of happens. Like, you know, you get into games with MMR that's similar between the two teams for the most part, but that's the only thing, you know. Like sometimes you get fucking 5 other DP, you know, sometimes you get like 4 healer mains, and the enemy team has like more of a 2-2-2, or they have like 3-3, so they have more flexibility, and you just kind of, just feel shitty because it's just like, fuck, well, if only we had just swapped one player between the two, the teams would have been even, and it probably would have been more competitive. That's why I think something like a role queue or some back end thing like could eventually help.
I don't know. I think the thing it needs is more incentive to be able to queue as like a 6-stack, because then you can actually play what you want. You can run what you want around it. I think that's what they need to move towards, is an incentive for that.
Well, yeah, I mean that dives into the issue of how SR is gained and lost, and honestly,
but it still is hard.
Yeah.
Even it is still as hard to get like 5 other people who have a similar mindset.
Well, the thing is, it sucks because you get pros. I mean, the best at the game, they never want to go past 2 or 3 stack, because why would they? They're going to lose SR, which is mind blowing, because these are the best at the game. Why wouldn't they queue together? But the system isn't built that way, so that. All this stuff is stuff that needs to be tweaked and worked on. And I'm not yelling at Blizzard saying, you need to do this right now or the game's going to go in the trash. But they do need to take care of it in a timely manner of some sort, because it is in a regressive state. And
it should be a goal. Like,
yeah.
If more people want to watch the game than play it, there's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
The only time I've really had fun playing comp was when we ran 6-stack when it was like new.
Yeah.
Because when we ran 6-stack when it was new, we could run our own stuff and run strategies and actually enjoy it.
Well, the perfect
I had
example.
fun with that for a time until we started losing more than when it was just us 3 or just Pax and I, or like. Then it was like, okay, these people just aren't keeping up.
Dude,
well,
I haven't
exactly.
even
Well,
rank.
think about it this way:
Yeah,
when we're playing,
I haven't either.
when you're playing arenas or even rated battlegrounds in World of Warcraft, for instance, it is much more fun and you have much more control when you're playing with 10 of your friends in a rated battlegrounds, even if they're not that good. You have a better chance of doing that than pugging and you and 10 random strangers are playing a rated battleground. I mean, that's just kind of obvious. That's kind of how it works.
It's just unrealistic for the vast majority of people on ladder to play with a consistent group. Like, they can always queue
But the problem is, in Overwatch, you're having that exact problem. You're much better off, much more likely to win playing by yourself with a random group of strangers than you are working as a team. There needs to be adjustments in SR for that and all that.
If you can't get a consistent group of 6 people or 5 people to stack with, right? What's the solution? A way built into the game to try to balance out what roles people try to get into in the game, because it's a way of doing it that doesn't have to. It's like a way of them kind of nudging people into doing the things they're supposed to do instead of
which is
having to rely on always having your friends with you.
If it is a soft queue for the 2-2-2, whatever the lineup is that they use for that, and then on top of that, it does not display to the teammates who queued for what, so you don't have to deal with getting fucking flamed when you're making the right choice for a hero counter pick, then that's one thing. But if it just turns into it's just another excuse to be toxic if everyone can see what you queued for off the start.
Yeah, but the other thing
is the people that are going to be shitheads and want to play roles that they don't queue for anyway are going to fucking do it regardless.
Well, yeah, they are. They're always gonna find a way to be a shithead, though. So it should.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're gonna do it regardless. If the whole goal is to just kind of hopefully get a team that's somewhat balanced in there, having a soft queue where it's 2-2-2 or whatever they decide to make the soft queue at, and it not being visible, because then you just have a higher chance that those people are gonna play into characters that they want to play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, but either way, regardless of what they do, they'll have to, actually take some be more strict on the rules, right? If somebody does that, if they queue healer and then just play a fucking DPS, if there isn't a way built into the game that prevents them from picking that hero or whatever, which I don't necessarily think there should be, they should definitely take the reports more seriously around that kind of shit, because
I think the goal is just to get it a little more normalized, and just having that in there on its own without it directly locking you into stuff might be a way just to give you a better chance of having a better game.
Well, the other problem too is, and I didn't think about this beforehand, but I did, but when people were talking and asking for a separate solo queue and team queue, and at first I was like, that seems a little bit ridiculous to me, but I was thinking of terms of you always having one rating. But the more I think about it, the more I don't see a downside to having a solo queue, having a solo queue ranking, and then having a squad queue with a squad queue ranking. Every game has that. WoW has that. Fortnite has that. Fortnite has
Right.
that. Come on.
Right, there was solo and duo were the same thing because duo is two people, but it's still not that much different from like
Right.
like it makes sense to be able to have like person playing as themselves and people who are playing as twos because there's still enough people to separate it like in a good way. But there was a difference between solo/duo and like queuing. If you wanted to queue as two or more, you had to queue as a whole 5-stack.
Yeah.
There was a point where they had it so that like at a certain point on the ladder, people could only solo. But then they reverted that because there was a lot of pros that wanted to like at least duo or something to try to like they wanted duo with their teammate on the ladder to get more synergy with that specific teammate. And there was other shit. There wasn't as many entertaining streams where we had two like players like queuing together that were fun to watch together or something. But yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. Makes sense. Have a solo thing for people. Because I mean the queue times are going to be different anyway, right? So just have a separate ladder for the people who queue as teams and people who queue as solo. Duo.
Well, I know they're worried. I guess I know at Blizzard what they're probably worried about is diversity, like too much stuff. There's just too much stuff, and it breaks apart the player base, and then the kind of cohesion falls apart. I know that's what they're worried about.
It's a valid concern.
It is a valid concern, but the problem is I'm not going into Overwatch and going, how can I best help all my friends today? Or the random people I'm going to encounter. That's not my thought process. I hit the mic. That's not my thought process. It is if we're going in as a six stack. I'm like, okay, how are we going to work together as a team and blah, blah, blah. But we never go in as a 6-stack and competitive because what's the point? You're going to lose SR. But aside from that, that's not the goal of most people going in to play competitive. They're just like, I'm going to play this hero, I'm going to get better at it, and I'm going to climb the rank. There's really...
Yeah, and I think there's some people who think there's a problem with that. Like, I've seen some people say, like, we should get rid of people who main a certain role. I was like, okay, hard one-tricking one hero is pretty dumb, especially if it's, like, something, right? But there's nothing wrong with primarily playing a certain role. That's, like, how you get good,
how you get good.
Ask any fucking pro how they got super good, any fucking video game, and they're going to tell you they played a shit ton of that thing specifically. They're not going to be like, I just played whatever the fuck I wanted and just played every single thing like a little bit here and there. No, it's like even fucking Bruce Lee said, right? You don't fear the guy who's mastered 1,000 kicks, or that's practiced 1,000 kicks. You fear the guy who's practiced one kick 1,000 times, right? That obviously that kind of thinking leads some people to be jerks and just fucking only play that thing no matter what the circumstances are. But those people are special. But it's just that no, like you do main a role, you main certain things because that's how you really get the intricacies and get really good at them. It's just that if you're not a dick, you will have the presence of mind to be able to switch up your strategy if it needs to, right? If you're being more detrimental to the team than you are helping yourself or whatever, then that's when you swap. That's what all three of us here can do. So and it's just people who think that you can't main a role without being like toxic or just retarded. Like those people just get like stop.
Take a step back. The biggest problem really, and it's something they're going to have to address very seriously, and it's going to take a while, is that the core of the game is about being flexible, and the problem...
People inherently are inflexible.
Well, I was going to say, not only inherently, but that's the only way you get better at a particular thing. The only way I can get better at... The only way I can be the best Soldier 76 is by playing more Soldier 76. And a lot more. So that is an inherent issue with the very basis of the game. And for them to, it's an issue that needs to be addressed in a very complicated manner because it's a complicated game. Like we stated previously.
It kind of creates a disconnect too because a lot of the people who are playing competitive have a competitive mindset. So what do they want to do? They want to get better. They want to get better at the things that they want to get better at. So they want to play like this type of hero or this type of thing because that's what they want to get better at. Because that's the whole point of playing competitive is getting better because through getting better you win more. That's how it works.
Yeah, I mean, case in point, like I when we started playing Overwatch and all throughout even until now, I'm a flex player. I play anything. I can play every hero to some degree or another and at least not be complete ass on it for the most part. And I'm specialized in support, but I still play just about everything and anything. What got me to be really good at Lucio was when Lucio was super meta and I played him at every single game. It was beneficial to the team, but it was also what made me better at him, and I became really good Lucio.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can play pretty much any of the DPS at like okay level at least for the most part. But I started getting really, really good at Tracer when you told me, oh, you should play Dive more, and then I was like, oh, I should. So I started practicing Genji, and then I was like, well, I'm gonna start playing Tracer, and then I was just like, wait a minute. It just like clicks. And I don't like to play healer, but there's been times where I swapped to Lucy or Zenyatta and it's been okay. Not Mercy, fuck that shit. Ana, like, I used to not, just because I wasn't comfortable with using scopes and stuff. But still, yeah, like, that's the thing. It's like I primarily play DPS. I'll play DPS every instance I can, 100%. But I will, swap I prefer to swap to tank if I have to swap off of DPS.
Right.
But we know that.
Yep.
We're preaching to the choir here.
Yeah. Regardless, we've ranted about this for like 40 minutes now, but basically,
we always find a way.
There needs to be a change, but it's going to take time for sure, and it's going to be complicated, and there's going to be a lot of things to it. So if anybody comes up with a easy one-trick solution to fix the problem of it, it's probably not going to work, because it's gonna take a lot of things to consider. But it can be done, like you were saying, and it doesn't mean we should not pursue it and think of more ways to make it work.
I mean, that's how anything gets better, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Not even just in games, right?
But anyways, we'll go ahead and cut it because we're at an hour and a half. This is our longest episode in a while. Jeez. Going back to old days when we were doing the clip stuff and then...
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Anyways, so we're going to go ahead and cut off today's episode. Do you guys got anything else to want to pitch in before we...
No, I think we've gone long enough.
Yeah, pretty good.
Definitely talk to other people's ears off. But anyways, all right, well, as always, thank you everybody for listening. If you want to get in contact with us, you can contact us on our email, onetrickheropodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to leave us feedback, you can do so on Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play, or YouTube. That's where you can find our videos / audio tracks of what we're doing here. We will be back next week with episode 14, covering more Overwatch League and shenanigans. As always. Anyways, that's it, and we will see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Take it easy.
Oh, crap.
Goodbye.
Where's the outro? Oh, there it is. I almost did screen capture again.